and welcome to Superbwoman Sundays at 7. I'm your host, Janet Neal, the founder and queen bee at the Superbwoman Incorporated. I'm so glad that you're here. We have another amazing guest tonight, Nancy Slonim Aronie, who is a writer and a teacher of writing and a guide and mentor to many of us. I'm very excited for you to hear her message. Nancy and I met a number of years ago up in Martha's Vineyard where she gives her workshops, her writing workshops. And it was one of those synchronistic times for me. I was at a point in my life where I was kind of searching, trying to figure out what's next for me. I had always wanted to write, but was kind of afraid to put myself out there. And I saw an article in the local newspaper for these workshops that she was giving, and thought I would call. It was like starting the next day, and I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll just try. I probably won't be able to get in. And I called, and sure enough, she had one opening. So I went, and that really started me on my path of accepting that I am a writer, that I do have a gift that I am able to use and to put out there for the betterment of all. She has an uncanny ability to pull out from people what is hiding inside in a gentle, loving way. And she herself is a superb woman, a woman who has learned how to be herself, and as a result is putting out really amazing energy that is helping so many people. I'm excited for you to hear her story. Just one of the many interviews that I've done with superb women. If you haven't seen any of them, please check out my YouTube channel, The Superb Woman, or go to my website at www.thesuperbwoman.com, where you see the many, many superb women that I've interviewed. These are women who are comfortable in their own skin, who have taken the time to be, to align their lives with their essence, their power within, and as a result are doing amazing things. It's not about being a superwoman. It's not about how much you can do. It's about being first and then doing. And as a result, you put out positive energy, and we all need that. So I'm here tonight with my guest, Nancy Slonim Aronie, who is a writer and a writing workshop presenter. And I had the great good fortune of meeting Nancy up in Martha's Vineyard a number of years ago when I took one of her workshops, which ended up being one of those things that changed my life, and I know has changed the life of so many others. So Nancy, welcome to the show tonight.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm glad to be doing this, Janet.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you here. So Nancy, you tell the story at the beginning of your workshops about how you became a writer and a workshop provider. And it's a great story about you starting off living in West Hartford, Connecticut, and joining a writing group. And how did you get from there to where you are today?
Oh, my God. I think I always knew in my gut that I was going to be a writer because I wrote easily and quickly. I never honored it as a gift. I never saw it as a gift. I just did it. And when you're little, when you're young, whatever you do, you think everyone does. Mm-hmm. The first thing I wrote that I remember, we couldn't buy Hallmark cards. We had to make our own cards. And so I made a card. I think I was six or seven. And I made a card for my mother's birthday. And I have a sister named Margie, and I have no brother. And I wrote, "Happy birthday to mom, from Margie and Nancy and Tom and Tom." And my mother looked at it. And she looked a little befuddled, and she smiled. And she said, "Honey, this is wonderful, but who's Tom?" And I remember rolling my eyes like, oh, it rhymes with Mom. And my mother lit up, and she went, she had the chance to nip the little writer in the bud, and instead she nourished me, really. That physical lighting up of, oh, now I get it, like how silly of me not to have gotten it. And then in fourth grade, the teacher passed out, it's funny, we had recycled paper. She passed out recycled plain paper. You could see the little wood chips in it. And she said, "I'd like to know something about each and every one of you. Can you write something?" And I was pretty scared in math. It was like the beginning of numbers. And I wrote a poem. And the next day, out of everybody, she read mine, and I had written, I am very, very tall. All my friends are very small. Whenever you look, I always show, gee, I wish my friends would grow.
That's fabulous.
Obviously, I was already taller than the desks and the teachers and the kids. But the fact that she read mine, I mean, just got so much validation early on. So I always wrote. I hadn't sent anything out, really. And then I sent out a piece. I started running. It was the first discipline I had ever done. It was the first difficult thing. And physical stuff is difficult for me. So I stuck to it. It was the first really commitment to every day I ran. And I wrote a piece about it. And I sent it to my local West Hartford News, a weekly paper. And I didn't hear from them. And I didn't hear from them. And I knew the story was good. And then I sent it to the Hartford Courant, which was the big fancy schmancy paper. And they called and they said, we're buying it and we love it and we have a piece of artwork that's going to go with it. And I hung up the phone and the West Hartford News called and said, it's going in, it'll be in tomorrow. Imagine that I had written something that two places wanted.
Wow.
That was thrilling, but I had to call the Hartford Courant, the fancy schmancy one, and I had to say, I have to withdraw. And they yelled at me and said, you can't do that. Well, the fact is you can, but I learned a huge lesson. And so I learned the lesson that if you get two people to say yes, you're onto something. Then I started, I think the next thing that I wrote was the obscene phone call, the next big thing that had the next big shift or transition. I got an obscene phone call. This is before internet, so there were people that called and said naughty things on the phone. And I got one of those, and I mean, I got tons of those. All my girlfriends got those, and you slammed down the phone and you were shaking. So I got one, and I was cooking, and the oil was bubbling, and the dog was barking like your dog. And my kids were running through the kitchen, and I picked up the phone, and I said hello, and he said something, but I couldn't hear him. And I said, I'm sorry, what did you say? And he repeated himself, and I still couldn't hear him. And I said, no, I'm going to take it in the den. And I hung up the phone. I turned off the stove, and I went in the den. I shut the door, and I picked up the phone. I said, hi, now, hello. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you before. And he said, can I suck your tit, baby? Well, you know, I'm sure now in retrospect that I just had invested too much time in this guy to just hang up. It was like, wait a minute. I am just like giving this guy a half hour of my time. And I said to him, you can't do this. Do you have any idea what this kind of phone call does to a person? There was this long silence. I know that he was probably thinking, wait a minute, this is my call. I'm supposed to do the talking. And I said, do you know me? And he said, no. And I said, well, how did you get my name? And he said, I got it out of the phone book. And I said, well, thank you for telling me that. Thank you. That was kind of you, because honestly, I was shaking. Don't do this anymore. And he said, I thought girls like this. Wow. And I said, you know what? There probably are some. You have to find them. So I'm going to hang up now, and I don't want you to do this anymore. And he actually said, I'm sorry.
Wow.
And then he said the expression that everybody said in that era. He said, later. And I was like, no later. No. I hung up the phone, and I was just incredibly celebratory. It was like, wow. I told Joel that I had gotten this obscene phone call, that this guy had called and invaded me and said terrible things, and that instead of hanging up, that I had actually been very honest with him. And I said, you know, he heard me. I said I was kind, and I was clear, and I wasn't a victim. And honestly, I just learned a huge thing. If you are nice, and you are honest, and you're not screaming and angry, and your terror can get dissipated by just having a dialogue with somebody. And I hung up the phone, and I told the kids this, and every time I told a girlfriend, of course, the story got better, because when you're a storyteller, you embellish, and it just got funnier, and everybody cracked up that I told it to. And then, of course, I knew I had to write it. So I sat down and I wrote it, and I taped it, and I sent it to NPR. Well, they aired it before they even told me they were airing it. Then I knew, and that opened every door. It opened every door for me. After NPR, I just started writing for NPR, and I kept recording, and I'd get. It was an incredibly empowering, thrilling. It had everything that I have. It had the writing, it had the recording, it had the personal narrative that I could do well. So it was very, very thrilling. At one point, and I had never been in a writing group of any kind, or a writing workshop of any kind, I got a call from the writing group. All of them were published. They called and they said, they didn't even say, would you like to be? They said, we would like you to be in our writing group. And I was ecstatic. I hung up the phone. They were all published. I ran through the house screaming, oh my God, I have to lose 15 pounds by Wednesday. That's my issue. That is the weirdest thing in the world. You don't have to be thin to be a writer. I'd like to announce that right now. I'd like to have a neon sign flashing. You can be any body type. Carol Shoot, unbelievable. The Beans of Egypt, Maine, gorgeous book. She did not look like a Japanese model with short black hair and 90 pounds. She looked like a human being. You can look like a human being. You can look like you, actually. So I went to the first meeting, and the house itself was intimidating. It was a castle. And I got in there, and there was a pre-designated reader, and she, they had been meeting for years, and there were 14 women, and the pre-designated reader read her piece, and it was fabulous. I'm not easy, but I know good writing, and the piece was really fabulous. And she finished, and the first person who responded sounded like this. You know, Harriet, I felt that your characters were really rather one-dimensional. I mean, I couldn't relate to them. And I was like, whoa. And one by one, almost everyone in the room told her something that was wrong with the piece. Number one, they were wrong. Number two, it was so out of what I had expected. I just sat there, my stomach was like twisting. And then when the thing was over, there was food, and food is just about the most important thing to me, particularly dessert, and it was peach cobbler, thick crust, hot. Like, I went to the University of Virginia, peach cobbler, real peaches, oh my God, as much corn syrup as you could pour on top of it, unbelievable, thick, brown crust. So I glommed, and I left, and I got home, and my husband greeted me, and he said, so, how was it? And I said, oh my God, the peach cobbler was fantastic. And he said, no, babe, the writing thing. And I said, mean-spirited, actually. He said, you're going to go back? And I said, uh-huh. So I went back the next Wednesday night, wearing black, because I know that you're supposed to wear black if you're a writer. Same thing happened. Another gorgeous, intimidating house, and another pre-designated writer, and she read her piece, and it was stunning. I mean, it was just really, really good writing. And the same thing happened. The first person who responded said, you know, Stephanie, honest to God, she said this because I got out to the car and I wrote it down. She said, you know, Stephanie, I really have to admire your perseverance. And all I could think of was, A, the two women had gone to the same doctor to wire their jaws shut, and B, I got to get out of here. Oh my God. And then the same thing happened. Everybody in the room criticized, judged, told her what was wrong. I mean, it just about blew me away. But then there was this blueberry thing. It was unbelievable. Like the little tiny Maine blueberries. They're so very, very sweet. I ate with blue teeth. I came home, and my husband again said, so how was it? And I said, oh my God, I got to get the recipe for this blueberry thing. He said, no, babe, the writing, the group. And I said, it's like the worst teacher you ever had. All collectively clumped together, just telling you not to ever think of writing as anything you might want to do. And he said, are you going back? And I said, of course I'm going back. I'm reading next time. And he said, you're not nervous? And I said, no, they're not going to do it to someone new. I see the look on your face. Why didn't you call me and say, Nance, it's an idea for you to go? So I went, and they did a job on me. And there was apple crisp. And I remember thinking after and it's funny because the stuff they said, I actually wrote down, I took notes, and thanked them. after they said whatever they said, as they stuck a stake in my heart and twisted it. And I said, oh, thank you. Took my little notes. And I knew I had to leave. And I knew I couldn't stand around and hang around and be social and eat. But I wasn't going to go without the apple crisp. So I took the paper plate. This is what I find so interesting. When you're in trauma, everything is slow motion. And all the details are in relief. They're huge. So I know that the bowl was a fluted paper bowl. It was beige, that ugly beige with blue trim like a leaf in there. Plastic spoon. I don't like eating out of paper. I don't like eating with a plastic spoon. Put the stuff in there, the apple crisp in there. Got into the car, took a bite, and could not swallow.
Wow.
I swallowed, but I couldn't swallow. And this is a very long introduction to let you know that I did not write for a long time after that. Even though every time I sat down, I thought, well, they didn't know what they were talking about. They were mean-spirited. I am a good writer. And yet, I would sit down to write, and I would think of everything I should do before I would commit word to paper.
Right.
It took me a long time. So actually, I told the story in reverse because the obscene phone call was what got me back to writing. So it was really, I was writing and writing and writing, and I was getting stuff in the paper, but I hadn't been on NPR yet when they called. And so the first thing that got me back was that obscene phone call. And then that really was clear sailing after that. And then we had a great business, very successful for about, we had the business for 20 years. It was a plexiglass lucite manufacturing business. And we did that for about 8 years. We made money, enough money to buy a cabin on the vineyard. And then for 12 years, we lost everything. I always say we had to sell our house in Connecticut and we had to move to the vineyard into our little tiny cabin. Yeah, we lost everything. And then I say with a pause, but we found everything.
Yeah.
Because this is a very simple, really beautiful life. But anyway, I didn't know what I was going to do when I got back to Hartford. It was too late to start teaching. Teaching year had begun. And so I called Lears Magazine, which was the fancy kind of like, it was oversized and glossy, and it was of my era. And I had sold them 3 stories, and I called and I said, I need a job. And the gal that the editor had been working with was so lovely. And she said, can you do line editing? And I said, yes. And she said, great. We just lost our line editor today. Come in Monday. You'll meet Frances. We'll have an interview. Bring a body of work. You're as good as hired. I hung up the phone. I called everyone I knew and said, do you know what line editing is? Always say yes. Always say yes. You'll figure it out later. Mm-hmm. So I went to New York. I got hired by Frances. We totally connected. I just loved her. She loved me. And I moved to New York. And my husband actually ironed my outfit the night before my first day of work. He was so, I'm not a good ironer. It's sort of like, what's his name, whitewashing the fence.
Sawyer.
Yep. It's like, I can't do that. I'm just not good at it. So he does help me out with the ironing now and again. So I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All my friends in Hartford sent me flowers. They were on my desk. I had this unbelievable, powerful, in fact, she said, I'm going to pay you $75K. I will now tell you, Janet, that I didn't know what K was. But I knew it was big by her book. Joel was ecstatic. You're saving us, babe. You're saving us, because we had just about gone under. And on Friday, she called me into the office and she said, did you find a place to live yet? And I said, no. And she said, good, because it's not going to work. I stood there thinking, what's not going to work? She had me order a leather couch, a leather chair, a new computer. I mean, she had me decorate my whole office. What's not going to work? What's not going to work? I couldn't compute. And she said, you're a terrific writer and you can get a job anywhere, but not here. And she opened the door and I was out the door, walking down the hall, crying. And the managing editor called me in and he said, Nancy, don't take this personally. She fired 8 other people today. Frances is bipolar. Now, I didn't know what bipolar was. This is a long time ago.
Yeah.
So she hired you on an up day and she fired you on a down day. So I don't think you should take this personally at all. And I got back to the office, and there were my flowers, blooming and alive, and I was dead. And I called Joel, and I said, you have to come get me. I just got fired. I was so ashamed. It was unbelievable. Got back to Hartford. I think the next day I was in the post office, and I was in line. There were probably 18 people in line. And I saw a couple of people I knew. How's New York? And I went, still there. I'm not, but it is just so much shame. And I started telling people what happened, and I got a call from the editor at the Hartford Courant that he was so great to me, and he had published a lot of my pieces. And he called me in, and he said, tell me what happened. And I started telling him. He said, go home and write it. And I said, oh, no, Lear, I can't. I'm too raw. My heart's broken. He said, go home and write it. And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm bleeding. And he said, go home and write it. To this day, it's the best thing that I've ever written, before, during, or after. So I'm home. I have no job. I have written a piece that I'm incredibly proud of. There's blood all over the page. And I just put an ad in the paper. This is how I know you have a higher self, that there's a high being somewhere. And if you are a conduit and you open to it, something will come through, because I certainly had never planned on doing writing workshops. I just called West Hartford News, and I said, writing workshop in my home. And about 12 people called, and I knew them all kind of. And they came over, and it was 10 Tuesday nights. And I'm telling you, they did the same thing as that bad workshop. They tore each other apart. And I would take notes, and I would tell them what I loved, and I just I couldn't get over what happened. And what I saw particularly was that shoulders went up, faces got scrunched, and the writing got generic. Writing was uninteresting. Nobody went wild. Nobody took chances. All of a sudden, everybody was trying to impress everybody with how intelligent they were. And I knew I had failed. I just could not wait for the 10th Tuesday to end. And it ended. A normal person would have gone to Travelers Insurance and gotten a job, but I've never claimed to be a normal person. And I just put another ad in. And this time when people called, I said, do you know me? And if they said yes, I said, oh, you know what? I'm just I'm reinventing myself. I need people that don't know me. And I took 10 people that I had no idea who they were, and they gathered in my home. And I said, guys, I've only done this once, and I failed miserably, but I learned something. Creativity requires safety. You will be safe here. I have one rule, and that is, when you finish reading, we will tell you what we loved. That's it. No more. Because even if you're a published professional writer, every piece, you're in the embryonic stage. It's a baby. And I don't want to nip that baby. I want to nourish that baby. I want that baby to grow and bloom. So it's worked, and it's what I do. And I feel incredibly lucky. I don't have to put stockings on. I don't have a boss. I get to see, you said transformation was your word. Your life is transformed. I get to see it week after week after week. Yeah. People find out that they are gifted. They find out that the truth is filled with gold. They fall in love with each other. There's no competition. They cheerlead for each other. All I do is start out by telling this very story, and I start out by saying you will be safe. And then I say my only rule is when so-and-so finishes reading, tell her what you love, tell them what you loved. You're not trying to impress them. You're not trying to become their best friend. You don't have to say anything if nothing moves you. But if something does, please, that's what I want you to do. People leave, it's 4 mornings, people leave Thursday morning, and they are juiced, and they are inspired, and they know that writing is something that isn't difficult, that in fact, they came here to do this. They came here to be storytellers. Everybody has a story. They came here to tell theirs. And I just, stand in the yard hugging and kissing everybody goodbye and thinking, thank you. Whoever you gods are, thank you. Yeah. So that's how I got from there to here.
Well, I've heard these stories before, and I love them every single time you tell them, because it's such a great example when I talk about superb women, women who are comfortable in their own skin, and you exemplify that so beautifully, that you are Nancy, 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 Nancy. I put you in any surrounding, and you are the same person. So I'm very grateful for that. And we had talked about this, I talk about the shoulds and how superb women let go of the shoulds. And, so many of us, like myself, lived by shoulds. And then there's others like you, who you were saying it hasn't been an issue.
I mean, probably if I had listened to your questions in advance, given it some more thought, I should ask a couple of people who know me well. I think that I always thought that I should be thin, but I still have that issue. I work out a lot. Mm-hmm, so that's not such a should. People pleaser, I am a people pleaser, but not to the point where I sacrifice my own stomach. I don't go against what I feel. I thought that I was really good at confrontation, but it turns out I'm not. And that's interesting. I really thought, I just say, I never blurt, and I'm never mean-spirited, because I really know what that feels like. Should. Ram Dass says, don't should on me, which is my favorite. Mm-hmm. And I read that so many years ago that maybe it had an effect. Mm-hmm. I've actually gotten into a should, which is when I don't want to go somewhere, but it would hurt the person for me not to go, I do it now. So I feel like you should honor people if it's important to them, like a memorial thing, and it's raining and you don't want to go, you should go.
Well, I think that's aligned with your values, right? It's not necessarily doing something because somebody told you to. It's because it feels right for you.
That's it.
Yeah.
I remember when my sister moved down from Maine. I'm so in love with her, and I was always in love with her. And I had this big social life, and I could not wait to show her off. And I'd plan a whole dinner party around her. And she'd call about 20 after 7, and she was due at 7:30. And say, babe, we're just not into going out. And I was like, I could not believe that could happen, that you could actually do that. And of course, she came to a place where she would never do that. And I came to a place where completely understanding. If somebody doesn't want to do it, then you honor that.
Yep. So who has helped you along your path? I always say we can't do this by ourselves.
Well, I married a cheerleader. I married a person who is an example of sticking to stuff and working hard. And I grew up in a family where you kind of the message was very clear not to look foolish, not to be a beginner. I mean, that was almost like, I remember wanting to be a ballerina, and I said to my mother, Mom, but my toes hurt. And she said, well, honey, if it hurts, quit. And I quit everything. And my father compounded the problem. So between the two of them, starting out anything new, you're gonna look foolish. You're a beginner. You're not going to be an expert yet. But then I married someone who everything he does to get better. And he's been such a model for me, because I thought, well, if the thing didn't come out good in the first place, then that's it. I'm not doing it. And I've learned how to rework and rewrite. I never rewrote anything. I've learned how to stick to the thing. If I want to do this, I have to do it. Not everything and not all the time. I'm still, I would call, lazy. And I still have that thing as, well, it didn't come out perfectly. That's why I do art, because the art stuff I do, A, I'm not an artist, and B, it always comes out great because I have no expectation. But in a writing thing, now I work harder, and I had never done that before. Jer, the picture behind me, Jerry Storrow, he was a volunteer 25 years ago at a place that I taught. And he was not only another cheerleader who just stuck by me, but he came to a lot of workshops and schlepped my stuff. And I am still pretty bad about carrying suitcases and papers and organizing, and he also offered me money when I was broke. He came to me and said, I've inherited a small amount of money. What would you like? And I said, cashmere. As you all know, you cannot write if you're not wearing cashmere. So anyway, he was a great help. My sister is like an amazing help. We read to each other and get feedback. I have phenomenal women friends. I have guy friends. My mother was totally a cheerleader. She sat in front every time I gave a talk. She'd be in the front row with a tissue ready to go because, you know, I cry easily. But Joel never said, geez, I can't believe you said that. You know, we'd come home from a dinner and he never said, you're going to wear that? He never said, I don't know about your hair, babe. He never said what he would say when I would call him at work and I'd read him a piece. He would say in the very beginning, when I was first writing, I'd call him and he would say, I think you got 2 pieces in there. And I would go, you don't even know what you're talking about. You're not a writer. I don't even know why I can call you. And I'd hang up and I'd read and I had 2 pieces entwined together, entangled. So he became very, very good but I taught him. I said, you know what? The first thing you have to say is, I loved when you said such and such. And then anything else you want to say, I can hear. I just can't hear the bad stuff first. But he's been solid rock. Solid rock.
Wonderful. So Nancy, what's next for you?
Oh boy. I'm not so great about later years forward, but I mean, next immediately, I'm teaching at Crepallo December. I don't know when you're going to air this, but the weekend of December 13th. And then I'm going to Row January 10th. I'm going to British Columbia. And if I can think of the name of the place.
Somewhere. Is it on your website?
Yeah, it's on my website.
Okay.
And I'm going to Omega in June. And I'm going, where else? And then, of course, all summer I do it here. So every week, you know, for the 4 mornings from 9 to noon, I do it on the vineyard. And then in the fall, I've been doing it in the fall. And people come from all over the world in the fall. They're smart because that's when it's most beautiful. Ocean is warm. Everything's on sale. And they've all gone home. so that's what's next, really. I've been writing my short pieces, and they've been, I just send them to the Vineyard Gazette. Not just, I send them to the Vineyard Gazette. It's a thrill to have them locally. I love the editors there. They're very good to me. And so I'm still writing. I just wrote a grandma piece because now I'm a grandma, and it's an amazing, amazing role. And that's going to go in this Thursday. So that's cool.
Excellent. Excellent. And tell everybody what your website is.
It's chilmarkwritingworkshop.com. So CHILMARK. Chilmarkwritingworkshop.com. That's what it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We'll put up a slide at the end of this so people can see.
You know, and my book has gone into the 7th printing.
Fabulous. And what's the name of the book?
Writing from the Heart, Tapping the Power of Your Inner Voice. I would change it now and just say, Writing from the Heart, do it.
Just do it. Well, Nancy, I want to thank you so much for being on my show, for being such an inspiration to me and to so many other writers out there. And I just look forward to taking another one of your classes one of these days.
Janet, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, babe.
All right. Take care.